As chairman of the National Digital Roundtable and co-founder and chief strategy officer of Social Driver, Anthony Shop is an expert in digital marketing, social media, and China's digital landscape. From our hometown of Washington, D.C., please welcome Anthony Shop.
I was walking down the street a few years ago and I saw this ad campaign. You see a picture of the billboard here. It says, "Made with a freshly cracked egg." And I looked at it. I don't know about you, but I just said, that can't be true, can it? We've been trained to see McDonald's as fast food, processed. We know it tastes the same anywhere in the world. They can't really be cracking eggs behind a McDonald's, can they? And I've actually asked thousands of people this question. Fewer than 1% believe that this is a true statement. A lot of people like me are kind of skeptical. They wonder, is this fine print that maybe there's some process, maybe they patented at McDonald's, or is freshly cracked an acronym for something? A lot of us are kind of dubious. Most people don't believe it. But every once in a while, someone will say, I actually used to work at McDonald's and we cracked the eggs for breakfast when I worked there. And that person who had the real experience is the one who's right. Because believe it or not, if you go to any McDonald's right now and order an Egg McMuffin for breakfast, they actually get eggs there and they crack them. It's actually true. Now, it's a little misleading because the other sandwiches are not freshly cracked eggs. But a little menu hack for you, if you don't remember anything else today, you can actually request the round egg on any sandwich at McDonald's and get your own freshly cracked egg. Now, how did this campaign come to be? I imagine, you had a big boardroom with people from ad agencies around being paid lots of money to come up with a big idea because, McDonald's has really been struggling with millennials and Gen Z and people who want fresh food. They're getting beat up by companies like Panera. Somebody probably said, I got it. There's this one thing we do that kind of tells a good story about freshly cracked eggs. So let's talk about that. Let's just say freshly cracked eggs, that we use them, and that'll make everybody happy. Well, did it? I don't believe that this has been a successful campaign. In fact, if we look at right after it launched on social media, what do we see? People saying things like, I bit into shell. I didn't even realize they used real egg. And the second one is the one that really gets to me. A freshly cracked egg at McDonald's is such a lie. That commercial is misleading. Now imagine you just had this big meeting. You've spent millions of dollars on this ad campaign. And not only do your customers not believe you, they think you're lying. So they're more upset with you than before. That is not a great way for us to invest our dollars. But it is a really important lesson for us to learn that the way that we used to market has changed. We used to be able to depend on a slogan or a jingle or a tagline and just interrupt people enough, and it would make a difference. And it's just not the way things work today. In fact, we can pay to interrupt people with a message and it won't necessarily sink in. This is the most expensive place in the world to do that with out of home, right? Times Square probably looks a little different today during the pandemic. Fewer people perhaps and more masks. But one of the things that's probably not changed is what you see. Why I love this image. When you zoom in, what do you see this guy doing? He's looking down at his phone. He's not paying attention to all those ads trying to interrupt him. He's on his own journey. He's created his own experience in today's world. And that might be, tweeting. He might be checking out the latest TikTok craze. It could be searching what's the best place to eat in Times Square. Of course, the answer is don't ever eat in Times Square. That's where all the tourist traps are. But he's not paying attention to all of those ads. This is such a wake-up call for us. In today's world, we can be really bright, but people don't see us. We can be really loud, but people don't hear us. And we can even be really honest. We can tell the truth, just like McDonald's did. People don't believe us. Haven't we all encountered that, where perhaps a friend or relative just won't believe the facts? So what do we do? How do we approach marketing in this era of disruption? Well, I think that we have to think about the world a little differently from the way many of us have been taught. And I'll tell you, I had a wake-up call about this that I used to remind myself years ago. I worked at a TV station, and the meteorologist asked us, when lightning strikes, where does that energy come from? And We were interns. We looked at the picture and thought, I don't know, the sky or the clouds. And he said, that's what people used to think. They thought Zeus was throwing lightning bolts. They're coming from up there, but you're wrong. It's the opposite. I said, what do you mean? He said, that energy, those electrons, are actually in the mass of the Earth. That's where the charge is. And lightning is a phenomenon where this invisible leader bolt comes down. You can't see it. It's really fast. It makes a connection. It finds that energy and it creates a channel to unleash the energy that was already there. And that was kind of mind-blowing to me because I'd never seen lightning that way, but I'd never seen the world that way either. And now what I realize, as we're in 2021, putting our plans together, we have to approach marketing the same way that the science behind lightning works. You see, you can get a group of people to come around a table and say, what's the slogan? What's the jingle? Ooh, freshly cracked egg. That's a top-down approach. And that did work in an era of mass media when everybody was sitting around watching the same thing at the same time. But in today's world where consumers are in control, it doesn't work. It doesn't work as well. In fact, if you think about some of the slogans like, this is your brain on drugs, or take a bite out of crime, right? Those wonderful PSA campaigns over the years. I bet you can't name one that was invented this century, because this century is when we started to see those changes occur. So instead of being top down, we have to be bottom up. We have to ask, where is there already energy? What are people talking about? What do people care about? And how can we channel the energy that's already there? And the thing about that is you can channel it for good or for bad. We can all think of examples where that energy has been channeled for really negative things that we disagree with, but we can also think of examples where it's been channeled for really positive things. Maybe a GoFundMe to help a family in need, and many examples. So we need to make sure that we find a way to harness that energy for the ways to advance our goals and, frankly, to make the world a little bit of a brighter place. So how do we do that? I'm going to share a framework with you to how we build this called the 3 dimensions of digital strategy. Now, that's a people-centered approach. We used to have a channel-centric approach. The idea was that you could just use this great framework, paid media, earned media, shared media, owned media, and you could plot out all the different things you need to do. And you have this big checklist. And now that you've checked off all the boxes, you're done, right? Well, wrong. What we've learned is you can check every box and have a campaign that doesn't work. So that's why instead of putting the channel at the center, we put the people at the center. And when you put people at the center, you come up with a completely different approach, what we call the 3 dimensions of digital strategy. Attention, which is all about messages that come directly from your brand to people. And whether that's a large group of people, like an out-of-home ad, or whether that's a really small group of people, like a geo-fenced ad, or an email that goes to a small list. Intention marketing is a little different. It's when you find what journey people are on, what mission they're trying to accomplish, and you help them complete it. You'll see some examples of that. And lastly, mention marketing is when you get other people to talk on your behalf, because we're all sharing more than ever. Customers have the opportunity to do that. Friends have the opportunity to do that. And we want to empower people to speak on our behalf. It's always way more important than speaking just about ourselves. So let's dive into these 3. We're probably most familiar with attention marketing. The idea that you put something to intercept people. And, there's still room for this in the world, of course, but it's changed. Our behaviors have changed. You can see McDonald's even changing with it. This is an ad campaign that they did in Europe. They don't even have their logo on the out-of-home ads, and they've gone to a much more expensive approach where they have literal bites taken out of these signs. I really am kind of a fan of what the company Carvana has done. You may have seen one of these Carvana car vending machines on a highway near where you live. We have one off of, I think it's 270 in the DC area, but I've seen them in my travels all across the country. Now, a lot of people see this and what they think is that Carvana uses this to sell lots of their cars. Well, in fact, less than 1% of their inventory is ever sold through one of these vending machines, but it sends a signal. It gets attention in the local community. Often there's a news story written about it. And it also communicates what they want you to believe about their brand. They're tech focused. They must be really innovative. This isn't your, old-fashioned mom and pop car dealership. So it's an example of, frankly, an expensive billboard, but a way to cut through the noise in today's world. Now, can only do so much with traditional media when we see the spend and the eyeballs skyrocketing in the digital realm. And it's not enough to just shrink our billboard or our TV ad down and put it on someone's phone. 18 to 24-year-olds are spending a disproportionate amount of their time on Snapchat, Instagram. This Pew data wasn't updated to include the big player from the last year, but TikTok has grown significantly. A TV commercial doesn't work on TikTok. It doesn't fit into the style of content. And so we need to create content that actually fits that medium. You can see this is an example from Unidos US. It was a voter registration campaign targeting the Latinx population that my team worked on, and creating graphics that really resonated and performed well natively in platforms like Instagram was important to driving thousands of new people to register to vote in the last election. A very different approach, a very digital first approach versus just re-airing a TV campaign in a smaller platform. I also like this example from the American Chemical Society. It's a Facebook ad campaign for members because it reminds us of the importance of writing. This is a kind of entertaining if you're a chemist. Join us before the SOX argon, the element argon. It creates urgency. It's a fun giveaway, but it's just the kind of humor that works really well for chemists and perhaps fans of the Big Bang Theory. So writing is a really important way for us to cut through the noise too, and visuals, because of course there's so much more noise out there. Lastly, this is an example I saw from Nothing But Nets that I really liked. They created a virtual reality film showing their work in Africa to prevent the spread of malaria. They actually took that VR film to Capitol Hill, and you can see on the left there, Senator Debbie Stabenow watching that. I bet she remembers that much more than the other one-pagers that were handed to her that week. So when we talk about attention marketing, it hasn't gone away, but the pressure's been ramped up. We have to ask, how do we find and target the right people? And then how do we cut through the noise? And whether that's crafting something that we distribute ourselves to a small audience, like through our email, or whether it's running advertising where we use geofencing or other behavior to get the right message to the right people. This is a really important area of marketing for us to focus on, but it's not the only one. I want to talk next about intention. Now, we've all experienced this, in the old days, we didn't have a phone to tell us who to call when we had an issue. So we would go to the Yellow Pages. And if you were a plumber and you turned to the plumbing page of the Yellow Pages, what were the two ways you could get noticed? Well, one of them, you could name your company AAA Plumbing so that you ended up at the top of the list. That might work. The second is you could pay for an ad. And that ad might have cost thousands of dollars, but it'd be worth it if it caused people who needed a plumber to call you. Now, what if they said, hey, plumber, I got a deal for you. I don't have any space on that page, so I'm going to give you that same ad for half price on the mechanics page. What do you think? Well, nobody would ever want to spend money on that, would they? Because nobody's turning to the mechanics page looking for a plumber, right? That ad would be wasted. And so that shows the importance of intention. Now, Google is the new big player in the world of intention marketing. It certainly has decimated the Yellow Pages. And similarly, there's two ways that we can try to get ourselves noticed. We call these search engine marketing or search engine optimization. One of them's paid, one of them's not. So just like you could name your company AAA Plumbing, you can find ways to optimize your website and your content on your website so that you show up on Google. That's search engine optimization. Search engine marketing is running ads to make sure that you show up. Now, we have to remember that Google has changed so much in a short amount of time. I'm from Kansas City originally, and if you search for our hometown hero, George Brett, 10 years ago, this is what Google's results look like. You can see all the ads are relegated to the sidebar, and it's just a bunch of text, really. Well, what happens if we fast forward about a decade? You see it looks completely different. It pulls in images, it pulls in videos, it pulls in people also ask questions. And notice the gaze plot there on the right. You can see how an eye now moves a little differently on a page like that. So we have to think really critically about what our strategy is when it comes to Google and other places where people search. I searched event firms just to see what came up, and I noticed that the top results on the left, all of them are ads. So if you aren't buying an ad, you don't even show up before the scrolling starts on event firms. Cutting through the noise means being much more specific a lot of times. What if I search woman-owned event firms? Well, now there's only one ad at the top, and I see 3 organic results. So right there, you immediately have more of an opportunity to show up in your paid results. It's going to be cheaper because there's only one competitor currently. And you can also see there's actually a potential of maybe showing up in some of the organic results here. So this is just a very simple way to show the power of intention and ask yourself, not only Google, but where else are your people searching? Are there directory websites? Are there, if you're selling books, Amazon's probably really important. If you're a restaurant, Yelp's probably really important. But where are your people searching? And how can you help them complete their journey with information that will be useful to them and not just talk about, what you care about your brand? The last type of marketing I want to talk about is what we call mention marketing. And this is the idea that, look, it's great to talk about yourself, but really need others to talk about you. I'm always reminded of a sign. There was a restaurant near my office that said, best burger in town. And when I looked on Yelp, the top review said, worst burger in town. Now, what am I going to believe? Of course, I'm more likely to believe the anonymous person on Yelp than the restaurant itself. And it has since closed. So the market has told us the burgers were not the best. Well, we used to share these things around the water cooler, but now, of course, so much more is happening virtually. We're in Zooms rather than in rooms. And so it's really important that we think of those digital strategies. I love this example from the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a nonprofit that supports LGBTQ youth in crisis. And one of the things that I love is that they had an opportunity. They got a free billboard in Times Square donated. That's attention marketing. But rather than just throw their logo up there, they turned it into a contest. And the people who talked about the Trevor Project and they shared examples of how they were doing great work and why they supported it, they could be featured on that billboard. Well, what did that do? It got way more people to talk about the Trevor Project, and it really moved from attention marketing to mention marketing. I think it's a powerful example and one that we can all really think about and find how can we shift our marketing from attention to mention to get others to talk about us. Burger King did a fun thing early in the pandemic in some markets. If you made your Zoom background a billboard from Burger King, you could win a year of Whoppers, right? They're getting you to include them rather in the story that you're telling in your regular day. And that's the important thing about mention marketing. I had a meeting with the CEO of Girl Scouts in our DC region, and she was really smart. She gave me a patch, selfie with my CEO patch, and we took a picture together. She shared it, right? Great way to create some engagement and get people talking to see about the important work that the Girl Scouts are doing. Allison Roman is a celebrity chef who really pioneered a fun way to do this on Instagram. Now a lot of people do it, but when people would make her recipes from her cookbook and tag her, she would share that as part of her story. Well, what did that do? It enticed more of her fans to make her recipes, to tag her, to buy her cookbook, and it created great promotion for her and for her work. And I think it's a great way to see how we can elevate people with a little effort. Chili's several years ago actually gave their burger a makeover to make it look better in pictures. They knew that none of us believe the fake, food that we see on TV commercials and in billboards. So they actually made the burger look more appealing so that more people would share it on social media, such as Instagram. And that when they did share it, we would all go, "Ooh, that actually looks really good. I believe my friend's picture more than I believe an ad." So what happens when people share? One of my pet peeves is when we see things like this. Somebody shares a great announcement about their company, and all it does is pull in a logo from the PR press release service that they used. It's cut off. Look in the middle there. Instead of a headline, it just has a long, ugly Google URL. We have to think about how do we make it easy for people to share our information and make it look good. This is an example from ACT. It's a test prep sort of website that they had. And when you click share on Facebook, it pulls in a social media optimized image for Facebook. It's not even on the site. You can't even see it until you share. It's hidden just for the purposes of sharing on social media. What happens when someone shares your homepage on social media? Test it out. Hopefully it looks good, but if it's not, it might be a great thing to fix. It's a good opportunity. Now, I think you can even use traditional tactics like direct mail in today's world. My team sends Valentine's to clients, and we support the Trevor Project, that nonprofit I mentioned earlier. Everybody who shares it, we actually make a donation. And they pioneered it in kind of a new thing. They created an augmented reality lens so that when our friends would share that, our supporters would share that, it would announce that they unlocked that donation. A way to get more mention marketing, a way to get more people talking about it and build the buzz, which was really fun and helped us raise more money than ever. That actually turned into a campaign for the an AAM, which is a group that supports generic drugs, and they took that to Capitol Hill. And so we actually created an augmented reality lens to help advocates reach members of Congress and their staff and celebrate the anniversary of biosimilars. So you can see how these tactics can be applied to very different industries. So with mention marketing, there's so much more we could talk about, but the key things we have to ask is, where do your people already connect with one another? What service are they using? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Facebook? Maybe it's a private social network or intranet. And why would someone want to include your brand in their selfie? If you can't answer that question first, then your campaign's not going to fly. You want to ask, what could they do? And gosh, I just can't help but think with McDonald's, what if they allowed customers to go back and see those eggs? What if they showed those deliveries coming from local farmers? What if there was a camera at the drive-through window to show that happening behind the scene? What if they brought in TikTok influencers or Instagram influencers? When we ask these questions, we see so many opportunities to unleash that energy that's already there. And I encourage you to try it yourself using the 3 dimensions of digital strategy. Ask, what are you doing? Inventory in these areas, and attention. Targeting the right people on the right channels with the right message to cut through the noise. Intention, finding the people who are on a mission and helping them complete it. And mention marketing, give your people a reason to include you in their stories, their selfies, get them to talk about you. In today's world, it's really easy to lean back on the top-down marketing that we all are so familiar with. What's the slogan? What's the jingle? How can I interrupt people with something that's going to cut through the noise? But I think what we've learned more than ever is that we have to go the opposite direction. We have to unleash the energy that's already there by asking, what are people talking about? What do they care about? And how can we tap into the energy that's already there? And I believe that if you take that to heart and you look at your own marketing efforts, whether you're an event planner, major association, or a corporation like some of those that I work with, that approach is what works in today's world, and that's going to drive your digital strategy in 2021. Thanks for your time.